In the last session, we have discussed extensively about the international dateline. Now today we shall discuss whether India can have or afford to have the two time zones in order to suit some of its day-to-day necessities. Look at this particular question. The first statement says that the India has earlier implemented two time zone system for a brief period of time in her post-independent period. Secondly, it says that Indian meridian passing through Mirzapur in UP is chosen as the standard meridian for India. Third statement says that the custodian for realization, establishment, maintenance and dissemination of Indian Standard Time is chosen by an act of parliament, and it asks you which are the statements which are correct. Those who want to attempt this question, please pause the video and try to attempt. Those who have got the right answer, you are really good at even some of the facts related to geography with respect to India. Let us look at how to find answers for these, even though it's a factual question. We know that as per the India Yearbook 2019 or 2020, India extends from 68 degrees 7 minutes eastern longitude to 97 degrees 25 minutes eastern meridian. That means it's almost having a spread of 29 degrees. And as per our previous sessions, we know that each and every degree will lead to an elapse of 4 minutes, meaning approximately, if you observe, the western and eastern extremities of India are separated by almost 2 hours. If I have to be very precise, both these extremities of India are separated by just 4 minutes short of 2 hours, because 29 into 4 will make it 116 minutes. However, we have chosen the Indian Standard Time based on the standard meridian, which is 82 degrees 5 minutes approximately, if I have to consider. Then it is approximately 5 hours 30 minutes ahead of what is called as Universal Coordinated Time, or UTC. UTC has been taken here as 0.00 hours, and accordingly we are 5 hours 30 minutes ahead of this UCT. However, because of this adoption, we find that there is lot of inconvenience faced by northeastern states. They feel this inconvenience because they have to start their day very late, even though the sun starts to get brighter before 4 a.m. Indian Standard Time in June in these states, and they get darker by 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time in November. Yet they have to start very late their day, their working, because we have chosen a meridian which is probably unsuitable for these northeastern states for they to carry on their day-to-day activities. We find that the previous Chief Minister of Assam many a times raised this concern. When Tarun Gogoi was Chief Minister of Assam in 2016, he has mooted this idea of having a separate chai bagan time for the state of Assam, and accordingly he started implementing this particular chai bagan time for Assam in 2016 itself. That is because of this problem that on a day if the sun is rising at 4 a.m. in Kohima, it would rise at around 6 a.m. in Mumbai. That means as we have a single time zone, single meal time and work, and single sleep hours, we find that this is causing a delay of 2 hours in northeast compared to the western part of the country, and of an hour compared to the northern and central Indian part of this Indian subcontinent. So those who are advocating a separate time zone, they argue that the people in northeast could begin their day an hour earlier if this particular concept of having two time zones for India is considered, number one, and number two, such that whatever the time which is getting currently wasted, that can be corrected. So this advocacy has become radical these days. Even in 2019, there was news in November talking about this issue. Here, we know that in history, we had the adoption of these two time zones. pre-independent India had two time zones. In the east, Calcutta time was 5 hours 30 minutes 21 seconds ahead of the Greenwich Mean Time, while Bombay time in the west was 4 hours 51 minutes ahead of the Greenwich Mean Time. That means we had the time zones which are different for different regions. Similarly, because of the attainment of independence, these two time zones which were separate were abolished. Calcutta time was abandoned in 1948 and the Bombay time was abandoned in 1955. However, this expression called Chai Bagan time has remained in Northeast. The term Bagan time in Assam reflects what is called as labor laws. There is a law called Plantations Labor Act of 1951 which allows the government to set local times for particular areas. We know that the Upper Assam districts had this local time or Bagan time because they are famous for these tea estates, because these are higher regions, as well as you have this particular refinery named Digboy. Digboy refinery also has set its local time, and this has been a phenomena in Assam since long time. So the tea gardens in Assam have already started working their local clocks set an hour in advance of Indian Standard Time. Given this development, the CSIR's National Physical Laboratory has made extensive research in this particular area, whether can we go for a separate standard time for some of the regions of India and have some other separate standard time for some other regions of India. We know that CSIR's National Physical Laboratory is the custodian of the Indian Standard Time. Remember this. And it is the institution which has the responsibility for realization, establishment, maintenance and dissemination of Indian Standard Time through an act of parliament. NPL is not only the custodian for measurement of time, it is not only the custodian for having standards in India, it is a standard custodian for measurement of all the standards in India which are primarily driven by SI standardization. Here this includes meter, kilogram, second, Kelvin, ampere, candela, all these SI units that we consider in physics are measured in terms of standards exclusively for India by this laboratory called National Physical Laboratory of CSIR. So we also know that the world runs on what is called as Universal Coordinated Time, and we know that UTC consists of a time scale that combines the output of more than 300 highly precise atomic clocks worldwide. This we have learned from the previous session that it is based on the concept of atomic clocks. And out of these 300 highly precise atomic clocks that are available worldwide, we know that one is in New Delhi, which is in this campus of CSIR NPL, which is run by NPL. It maintains what is called as primary time scale. It maintains what is called as primary time scale, which is an ensemble of 5 cesium clocks. 5 cesium clocks and 1 hydrogen maser. What does this do? A cesium clock measures time on the basis of the resonance or also on the basis of change of energy state of an isotope of cesium, and what hydrogen maser does is it measures time on the basis of the resonance of hydrogen across energy states. And because of this, there will be lot of precision in the measurement of standard time. And we also have understood from the previous sessions that there will be continuous corrections which will be made to these atomic clocks based on certain phenomena related to the Earth's rotation. We find that a leap second is added every now and then to UTC in order to synchronize clocks worldwide with the Earth's ever slowing rotation. and atomic clocks are very accurate, and they are very stable within 1 second over a period of millions of years. So on the other hand, whatever the astronomical time that we have, which is called as universal time, refers to the Earth's rotation around its own axis and determines the length of a day, as we have seen in the earlier session through what is called as the animation. And here, however, the Earth's rotation around its own axis is not regular, as we have understood, and sometimes it speeds up and some other times it may also slow down due to various factors, including the moon's gravitational forces. Apart from that, there will be many earth-breaking geological forces which often result in variation in the Earth's rotation, and as a result, whatever the astronomical time that we calculate, it gradually falls out of sync with the atomic time, and as and when the difference between UTC and this astronomical time approaches 0.9 seconds, it approaches 0.9 seconds. Remember, a leap second is added. Leap second is added to what? Is added to the atomic clocks worldwide. Since 1972, with the start of this adoption of universal coordinated time, 36 such leap seconds have been added at various intervals, varying from 6 months to 7 years. In 2016, this was in news because 37th leap second was added to UTC at the midnight of December 31st, 2016 in the countries which are falling within this time zone. However, countries which are there in other time zones will have leap second inserted according to their longitude, and we know that this leap second is added simultaneously all over the world at UTC 23 hours 59 minutes 59 seconds on December 31st, 2016, as India falls in the zone of UTC plus 5 hours 30 minutes. We have to insert this leap second at IST 5 hours 29 minutes 59 seconds on January 1st, 2017, and accordingly we have added this particular leap second, and we have adjusted after the inception of this leap second all the atomic clocks worldwide. So those utilizing this NPL time dissemination services need not worry that they will receive the corrected time post the insertion of leap second. So the leap second adjustment is not so relevant for general normal everyday life. However, this shift is critical in applications requiring the time accuracies even in terms of nanosecond. There are many such applications where this correction is required, where the application will be to the tune of nanosecond. For example, astronomy, for example, satellite navigation, for example, communication networks, and for example, having the missile programs and its implementation. So the National Physical Laboratory is the sole custodian of Indian Standard Time, and recently it was in news again for what is called as charging for this time or selling this time. While NPL has been providing time to nation even before the independence, this was always what is called as a free service. Although NPL has always charged institutions who take other measurements that it calculates, that it standardizes, time has always been provided for free. However, recently NPL has signed a memorandum of understanding with ISRO, which so far was using what is called as GPS, Global Positioning System, of given time for its satellites, and now it is switching over to what is called as Indian Standard Time, which is completely indigenous, and for this we have what is called as NAVIC system. We shall discuss what this NAVIC system is some other session. This is a new satellite system which replaces GPS with Indian positioning system. What NPL provides us is, it provides us the time with lot of accuracy. The uncertainty or the error margin of time provided by NPL is very least, that is to the tune of 20 nanoseconds. So the error margin of this measurement of Indian Standard Time being the least in precision systems, this becomes very, very significant as we try to understand just before. Here in precision systems, even a minute difference can translate into a big difference on the ground. For example, if you look at any operation of any missile hitting a particular target, we find that with 20 nanoseconds, the error margin of locating the target is even less than a meter, which is negligible. So a 1 second time difference in calculation and its calibration, a missile could land in another city rather than the city which was targeted earlier. So this error margin or uncertainty being limited to a very, very least amount becomes very, very significant. This is where now NPL hops on selling time or started charging for time. While NPL, as you know, has been providing Indian Standard Time with such a high precision for decades, there was no market for it. Even today, there is hardly any market for Indian Standard Time. All our internet devices, all our various other communication devices are automatically synced with what is called as US provided global positioning system. However, there was a situation in Indian scenario where it called for having self-reliance and complete independence from these foreign services because we were vulnerable to these foreign services. How do we know this? You remember that India fought a brutal war in 1999, and in this time of Kargil war, when India had to zero in on targets, which was again based on the utility of GPS, we find that USA has blocked out GPS, and because of this, India had to prolong its war. It was only after this incident, India realized the need for having its own satellite positioning system, and hence it has developed this system called NAVIC system. Now syncing of NAVIC with IST will make the whole system completely self-reliant. So with this particular MOU that has been signed with ISRO, National Physical Laboratory also decided to start charging for providing Indian Standard Time for whatever the accuracy that it has tried to. A similar MOU is also being signed with Indian Armed Forces, and 3 branches of all the military are entering into this MOU with National Physical Laboratory. Along with that, remember that there were earlier some regular subscribers of this Indian Standard Time. We find that Department of Telecommunications and also Indian Railways have been part of this. So everything getting digitized, the need for using a standard time from a standard resource would be very, very crucial. With arrival of what is called as Internet of Things, IoT, and every gadget getting synced with one particular time, this selling of time becomes important. Standardizing it also becomes very, very important. And apart from this, India has always talked about what is called as smart cities, and apart from that, we have what is called as a smart grid related to electricity. And given these two, the possible working of these systems with precision calls for having a standard source of time. Given all these, standardization of time becomes crucial, and hence having the NPL as custodian of Indian Standard Time through an act of parliament was a relevant step. Apart from this, we have to now understand why these 2 time zones have been an idea that has been mooted time and again by these northeastern states. The answer lies in particularly in human physiology. Here, you might recall that in 2017, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was awarded to a particular discovery that has been made with respect to what is called as biological clock. You might have heard these 3 names: Jeffrey Hall, Michael Rosbash, and Michael Young, and they have elucidated that the plants, animals, and humans adapt their biological rhythm such that it is synchronized with Earth's revolution, and this finding has been awarded with Nobel Prize. Now, how it is relevant for having a standard time for Northeast, which is separate from one Indian Standard Time that we follow as of now? They established that The biological species are ruled by these internal clocks, which are called as biological clocks, that run on a 24-hour light dark cycle, which is in synchronization with the sun, that we tried to understand in the previous session. So they isolated a particular gene that controls the normal daily biological rhythm, and they have shown that this gene encodes a protein which accumulates in the cell during the night and degrades during the day. As a result, the metabolic, the hormonal, the central nervous system, and also various neurotransmitters operates in rhythm with each other. So due to this synchronization, for example, humans fall asleep at night and plants synthesize chlorophyll in the presence of sunlight. So the biological active clock is so active that when we move from one time zone to another time zone, it forces us to sleep at an unusual time. So this is commonly known as jet lag, and it requires few days to resynchronize our biological clock with the local solar timings. So with exquisite precision, the biological clocks adapt the physiology to the dramatically different phases of day. This picture gives you the idea of this biological clock. At various time slots in a particular day, there are various developments with respect to this biological clock, and this continues as per the revolution of the earth, and this continues as per the apparent movement of the sun that we observe in the sky. So this figure clearly illustrates some of the biological activities and daily routines related to the light and dark solar cycles. So this hormone named melatonin that you are seeing here, this hormone called melatonin, secreted from these pineal glands located in the brain, controls the sleep-wake cycle relative to the light-dark cycle. This relationship was established by this discovery by these three scientists. So the melatonin secretion starts approximately 3 hours after sunset, and it secretes for about 10 hours following a particular distribution pattern. So this maximizes during the midway of the secretion, resulting in deepest sleep, which occurs at around 2 a.m. that we see here. And apart from this, we find that the highest alertness is achieved about 4 hours after sunrise, and the best coordination is achieved at 3 p.m. So after the sunset, fatigue starts creeping in due to increased blood pressure and body temperature. Therefore, in order to make people work efficiently and in order to make them and remain them to be productive, it is necessary that the working hours should be synchronous to the biological clock as shown in this particular figure. So in this case, the working hours of 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. which suits the circadian rhythm is what brought into question by the northeastern people. And here, most of the advanced countries like US, they follow the multiple time zones in order to suit this requirement of biological clock. So this allows the synchronized circadian rhythm with light dark cycle and provides necessary comfort to its citizen and maximizing their working efficiency. If this circadian rhythm is not synchronous to light dark cycle, that is sunrise and sunset cycle, the working efficiency of the people will be compromised. Here, if the sun rises much earlier than the office hours, the phase of highest alertness gets wasted and the best coordination time would overlap with lunch timings. In addition, a major part of late office hours cannot be efficiently utilized due to fatigue. So all these three put together, it compromises the efficiency and it compromises the ability of the man. And given this fact, you must also remember that for late sunrise, people are not fully awake during office hours since melatonin secretion has not stopped yet. So keeping these concerns in mind, it is evident that human circadian rhythm is intimately tied to health, well-being and efficiency at work, which in turn is intimately related to the overall socio-economic development of the region. So it is therefore essential that the local time zone is to be set in such a way that the regular day-to-day activities of the populace becomes synchronous to the light-dark cycles or sunrise-sunset cycles of a particular solar day. So for the well-being and efficiency of the populace, the working hours should be within the appropriate slots of this circadian clock. So for the perspective of India, in order to estimate how many time zones the country should have, it is not just sufficient to discuss about this circadian rhythm. We have to also look at a crucial analysis of how sunrise and sunset timings across the country over the year is occurring, and this tells us, in combination with this requirement of circadian rhythm, can we go for any separate time zone for India. This again takes us back to the concepts that we have learned in the previous sessions. We know that the eccentricity of the Earth's orbit and also its 23.4 degrees tilted rotational axis result in varying lengths of day and night over different seasons. We understood this from the previous sessions that we have done. And because of this, we also know that there are certain phenomena which occur in the form of equinoxes and solstices. And as India lies in the northern hemisphere, it experiences summer in June and also winter in December. As I told you, we have to look at the sunrise and sunset timings across the country, and if we could map this sunrise and sunset timings across the country over the year using the existing Indian Standard Time, which is UTC plus 5 hours 30 minutes, we can clearly understand whether we can go for the second Indian Standard Time for some part of the regions in India. And for this, what National Physical Laboratory has done is that they have chosen 10 identified locations judiciously for the purpose of analyzing these sunrise and sunset phenomena in order to conclude whether we can go for the second time zone in India. This include the region called Dong, this include the region named Port Blair, then this includes Alipurdar, Gangtok, Kolkata, Mirzapur, Kanyakumari, Gilgitam, Kavarati and Gormota. We know that it is the Mirzapur through which the Indian Standard Meridian passes through, which has been chosen as standard meridian for calculating existing Indian Standard Time. And it is also included amongst these 10 locations due to the phenomena that we understood in the previous sessions that occurs over the Indian sky also because of the elliptical orbit of the Earth and the revolution of the Earth around the Sun. We find that the relative direction of the movement of the Sun depends upon a particular season. If you can observe, the movement of the Sun during summer solstice is in this direction of from southeast to northwest, and during the equinoxes, both the equinoxes, we observe that it is from east-west direction. However, during the period of this winter solstice and the subsequent period for some time, we find that it is from northeast to southwest direction. Given this fact, we find that the line of sunrise, which is being drawn here in red lines, in blue lines and in green lines, you observe that these lines of sunrise passing through whatever the 10 selected cities that I was referring to from Dong to Gaur-Mata, these 10 lines, they estimate the yearly sun graphs during summer solstice, during both the equinoxes and during the winter solstice. Now it is evident that in India, these lines of sunrise closely follow the longitudes only during spring equinox and autumn equinox, implying that, as you see in this picture, implying that we find that the sun rises earlier in a place which is relatively in the east. For example, the sun rises earlier in Dong, which is in east, compared to Port Blair. We observe here through this picture. And at the same time, if you observe, similar is the case with Kavarati and Gaur-Mata. That is, the Kavarati is finding the sunrise earlier than Gaur-Mata. However, if you take into consideration the time difference between the extreme east and extreme west regions, as I told you, it is close to 2 hours, given the fact that they again lie on the meridians as per our calculations. Given this fact, this leads to different sunrise patterns, and these different sunrise patterns must be considered. And as we know, in summer the sun rises earlier in Gaur Mata despite being in the west compared to what is called as Kavarati. Here if you observe, even though it is on the western front, we observe that during summer Gaur Mata is finding the sunrise earlier than Kavarati, depending upon these lines of sunrise which have been drawn in this particular picture. And accordingly, if you still observe, in the winter the sun rises later in Dong than if you observe the Port Blair. In Dong, it is rising at 5:52 am. However, in Port Blair, the sunrise is occurring much earlier at 5:37 am. So, as the circadian rhythm, as I told you, is based on this day-night cycle, therefore, any decision to select a specific time zone should also include the seasonal variation of sunrise and sunset timings. So we draw the sunrise and sunset times based on the existing Indian Standard Time, which is UTC plus 5 hours 30 minutes, along with the duration of the day in the selected 10 places by NPL during these 3 seasons. So whatever the data that were estimated from the yearly sun graphs, the dotted lines in the picture that is you are seeing now at 9 am and 4:30 am correspond to the office opening and closing timings if you correlate this with the earlier biological clock that we try to understand. So based on the availability of the sunlight during the office hours, the selected 10 locations can be classified into 3 categories as per National Physical Laboratory. Number 1, the selected 10 locations with respect to this available sunlight during office hours can be categorized into number 1, available for all the 4 seasons of a year. And in this, we find that the daylight distribution is quite symmetric with respect to the office timings. Particularly, Kanyakumari, Kaurati, and Gaur Mata fall in this particular genre. Number 2, the available for 3 seasons except winter, particularly Alipurdar, Kolkata, Gangtok, and Mirzapur, and of course even Gilgitam are falling in this particular genre. And here the daylight distribution is slightly asymmetric with respect to the office timings, and the sunlight is available for only 1 season symmetric with the office hours, that is summer. Here this is true for both Dong and Port Blair. And given this particular understanding of these 3 categories, the daylight distribution hence is asymmetric compared to the office hours and is shifted towards early morning. Therefore, from the circadian rhythm point of view, the existing Indian Standard Time is highly suitable for Kanyakumari, Kaurati and Gaur Mata. It is manageable for Alipurdar, Kolkata, Gangtok and Mirzapur and Gilgitam, but highly unsuitable for what? Dong and Port Blair. Therefore, the local time needs to be changed in these regions of Dong and Port Blair, and this has been exactly the demand from the people of all these. Now, given the understanding of these 2 phenomena, what should be the way out? Here, in 2002, based on a suggestion by then Governor of Tripura, the Department of Science and Technology has formed a high-level committee to explore the feasibility of having 2 time zones in India, given the longitudinal difference between the farthest regions of the country that we have looked at. So the committee here concluded against the idea of having separate time zones. Separate time zones, according to it, may not provide any major advantage to the states, and it said that such a move may actually pose difficulty due to the different timings that we have to follow, which have to be framed particularly for the communications, that is the transport sector. Airlines, railways and various other mobile communication systems that we have will face difficulties as per this particular committee's conclusions. It, however, recommended that individual state administrations state administrations may take up such a step at the local level. However, the standard time zones will be single for India as this committee has concluded. Again, in 2006, we find that the Planning Commission has recommended the introduction of 2 time zones in the country, saying that this will save a lot of energy. Again, in 2012, in a research paper published by the scientists from National Institute of Advanced Studies (NIAS) in Bangalore, they have recommended advancing IST by half an hour, such that it is 6 hours ahead of the Greenwich Mean Time, and because of this they concluded that lot of energy can be saved by India. And recently we observed that based on the same research, again pushing the IST meridian further eastwards or pulling the nation's clocks ahead by at least 30 minutes could help save annually an amount of 2.7 billion units of electricity, which is enough to power 1.35 million additional urban middle class homes. Given these recommendations, we observe that the Delhi-based CSIR National Physical Laboratory has examined the feasibility of implementing a time zone which is second for the entire northeastern states, that will be 6.5 hours ahead of UCT. 6.5 hours ahead of UCT to save what? The daylight hours. So to implement and to generate Indian Standard Time 2, the NPL, that is National Physical Laboratory, has shown its inclination towards going for this second Indian Standard Time. So according to National Physical Laboratory, it is evident now that making IST2 allows maximum utilization of daylight. Therefore, additional time zone IST2, which is UTC plus 6.5 hours, is a necessity according to National Physical Laboratory's recommendations for the extreme northeast regions, covering particularly the states of Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Mizoram and Tripura, and also particularly for Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And here NPL has also noted that the Chai Bagan time, that is the clocks set 1 hour ahead of IST and equal to the proposed IST2, is already being followed unofficially in Assam and officially since the announcement of Tarun Gogoi, the earlier Chief Minister of Assam, in 2016. And the existing IST, however, has to be renamed as IST1, which is suitable for the rest of India according to National Physical Laboratory. So there are clearly 3 suggestions here which occur. One is creating 2 separate time zones for India. The second one is introducing the daylight saving time as it has been recommended by NIAS. And number 3, advancing the Indian Standard Time by half an hour, which has also been recommended by NIAS. So the underlying objective of all these 3 recommendations would be the energy saving, and after considering this, as I told you, the 2002 expert panel has rejected having a separate time zone. It has felt that the seasonal difference in daylight hours is marginal in the country closer to the equator than those near the poles. Given all these recommendations, as I told you, the NPL has came out with this suggestion of going for the Indian Standard Time, which is the second one in India, particularly in relationship with the northeastern states. Here it wants to have this particular demarcation to be at this particular meridian 89 degrees 52 east, which is to be the Indian Standard Time 2. And the regions which are falling west of this particular demarcation will have IST1, which is UTC plus 530, and those which are east of these demarcation will have IST2, which is UTC plus 630. And to implement and generate Indian Standard Time 2, the National Physical Laboratory again have to establish a primary time scale, which is an ensemble of, as I told you, 5 cesium clocks and 1 hydrogen mason. in one of the northeastern states similar to whatever the primary time scale that it has for Indian Standard Time 1 in Delhi in its own campus. So the separate time zone would not have a major impact on the airlines, except they will have to adapt to arrival and departure timings. And we know that in US, which has 4 different time zones in the mainland, there is a time difference between West Coast and East Coast, which is of huge magnitude than in India if we were to have this IST2, but it does not create a bigger problem for airlines. So these 2 time zones, IST1 and IST2, must be the way out as per National Physical Laboratory. Now, if I look at this particular question, the first statement is obviously wrong. The second statement is again right. The third statement is also right. Hence, the answer must be B. Please make notes out of this particular video, have your own notes and go through it for a number of times. This area is again important not only for prelims, it is also very important for mains and interview. Please keep this in mind. Go ahead with the best possible preparation.